You have questions that burn in the quiet moments of your life. Questions you might not even know how to put into words. But that pulse beneath everything you feel. Stay with me till the end of this video as I unravel the 4 stages an empath goes through when abused by a narcissist. You want to understand the cycle between the empath and the narcissist. This dance of suffering that binds 2 very different types of people together. This isn't just psychology textbook stuff. This is about the deeper patterns that play out in human relationships, the ancient drama of the one who gives too much and the one who takes everything. The empath doesn't just happen by chance. Empaths come from a place of deep sensitivity that's both a gift and a danger. To feel too much is to be deeply human, but it also leaves you vulnerable. The empath's world has thin boundaries. They feel other people's joy and pain as if it were their own. When this person wanders into a relationship without protection, they often meet their opposite, the narcissist, whose hunger for validation and control becomes like a black hole that the empath's light starts orbiting around. Carl Jung understood these patterns deeply. He saw them as archetypal forces, universal patterns that show up again and again in human experience. And through studying countless people and their dreams, he mapped out exactly how this cycle unfolds. Stage 1. Enchantment. The first stage is enchantment. At this point, the empath sees in the narcissist not a predator, but a mirror that reflects their deepest longing to be truly seen and understood. The narcissist projects an image of perfection, intensity, charm, intensity, that magnetic presence that seems to hold the key to everything the empath has been searching for. This is like the fairy tale moment when the hero meets the magical being who seems to offer everything they've ever wanted. But this isn't real vision. It's illusion, glamour. The empath, desperate to belong and be recognized, offers themselves as the vessel into which the narcissist pours both praise and poison. During this stage, if you pay attention to dreams, they often come filled with symbols of light that's too bright, mirrors that distort things, voices calling from across impossible distances. The unconscious mind is already sending warnings about the imbalance, but the conscious mind isn't ready to hear them yet. The empath feels intoxicated by all the attention, by this sense of destiny and intimacy that the narcissist creates. But what's really happening underneath is projection. The empath has projected the image of the perfect savior, lover, or ideal parent onto the narcissist. They're not seeing the real person in front of them. They're staring at the screen of their own unconscious desires, and the narcissist has slipped into that role like an actor putting on a costume. The narcissist doesn't fear your anger. They expect it. They thrive on it. What they can't handle is your peace, your clarity, your unshakable presence in your own truth. Stage 2, the slow eclipse. The second stage is what I call the slow eclipse. Here, the empath begins to feel the drain, the slow siphoning of their life force. What once felt like mutual give and take starts to feel like obligation. The narcissist's hunger is never satisfied, no matter how much the empath gives. The empath, terrified of abandonment and rejection, terrified above all of becoming invisible, pours more and more of themselves into this bottomless void. This is the stage of sacrifice, of slow martyrdom. In dreams during this time, the empath might wander through endless corridors of doors, each leading to rooms where someone demands something from them. Or they might dream of pouring water into wells that never fill up. These are the soul's way of showing the endless drain of energy into something that gives nothing back. And yet the empath endures. Why? Because they haven't yet seen the shadow within themselves that makes them susceptible to this dynamic. They believe their suffering is noble, that love is proven by how much you can endure. This is the trap of thinking you're the wounded healer, believing that to heal someone else's darkness, you have to bleed endlessly for them. But this is a distortion of real love. True love asks for balance, for mutual recognition, for reciprocity. Without balance, love becomes possession. And possession is just another name for the shadow side of relationships. The empath adapts to survive, making themselves smaller, quieter, more pleasing, as if by offering even more, they'll finally fill that abyss. But this shrinking is a kind of symbolic death to self. And yet, it's also initiation into something deeper. Stage 3. Confrontation with the abyss. The third stage is confrontation with the abyss. At this point, the empath begins to glimpse the truth, though often dimly and with great fear. The narcissist's mask starts to slip. The charm gives way to cruelty. The praise turns into contempt. The warmth becomes icy withdrawal. The empath, who has gotten used to carrying the weight of two people's emotional worlds, feels the unbearable pressure of emptiness pressing in from all sides. Here, the archetype of the devouring parent emerges, the figure who consumes without giving life back. The empath's inner child cries out, "Why am I never enough? Why is my giving met only with more hunger?" Dreams during this stage often become nightmares, being pursued, losing your voice, drowning. The unconscious doesn't lie. It reveals the truth that the ego refuses to face, that your very identity has been swallowed up. In myths, this is the descent into the underworld, the imprisonment in the belly of the whale. The empath is caught in the psychological gravity of the narcissist's world, unable to imagine escape. But this is the necessary moment, the darkness that comes before transformation. Because only when you're stripped bare, confronted with the shadow in its full terror, does the possibility of rebirth appear. The empath must face what they've always avoided, the loneliness at the heart of their being. This primal fear of being unseen, unneeded, unloved. This is what drove them into the narcissist's arms in the first place. Stage 4. Awakening. The fourth stage is awakening. But awakening is never gentle. It's a tearing away, a breaking of chains, a realization that what you called love was actually addiction to your own projections. The empath awakens to the terrifying truth that their suffering wasn't just imposed by the narcissist, but also created by their own shadow. Their refusal to set boundaries, their unconscious need to sacrifice themselves to avoid facing the emptiness within. Awakening means the death of illusion. It means grieving not only the relationship, but the dream of being rescued by someone else. This is where individuation begins, where the empath must reclaim their own energy from the abyss and recognize the narcissist for what they really are. At this point, symbols of rebirth start appearing in dreams. Iswise, the rising sun, seeds cracking open, the return of breath. But awakening isn't triumph in the heroic sense. It's not about conquering the narcissist. It's about integrating your own shadow. The empath learns that the narcissist was actually a mirror of their own inner wound, their own forgotten self that sought completion in someone else's gaze. To escape this cycle, you have to turn inward and face the orphaned parts of your soul that were looking for completion outside yourself. Only then can empathy become strength rather than vulnerability, a gift rather than a curse. The empath who awakens discovers something amazing. They begin to feel their own energy returning, as if the life force that was once drained away now flows back inward. They discover that their sensitivity, once a wound, is actually a compass guiding them toward truth. They realize that boundaries aren't walls, they're sacred thresholds that protect the temple of the soul. They discover that love isn't proven by sacrifice, but by reciprocity, by the meeting of two whole beings rather than the fusion of wound and hunger, integration and transformation. But remember, this journey isn't linear. The stages often overlap, repeat, spiral back on themselves. You might awaken and then find yourself enchanted again by another mask. The unconscious doesn't give up its patterns easily. Don't despair if you find yourself repeating these cycles. Each repetition is an initiation. Each time of suffering is a revelation. The narcissist isn't just your enemy. They're the embodiment of your unconscious challenge, forcing you to see what you'd rather avoid. When you finally face it, when you integrate your shadow, you no longer need the narcissist to play their role. You're free. The task isn't to label or condemn, but to recognize these archetypal forces so you can participate consciously in the drama rather than being unconsciously devoured by it. The empath who awakens becomes not weaker, but stronger. Not bitter, but wiser. Not enslaved, but free. And in their freedom, they offer the world something rare. The presence of someone who feels deeply loves authentically, and walks with the strength that comes from having real boundaries and the wisdom of integration. Your sensitivity isn't your enemy. Your empathy isn't a curse. They're gifts that must be tempered, guided, and made whole. The fire of this suffering is forging you into something stronger and truer. One day, you'll look back and see that even the darkness served the light. If this resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might be experiencing similar challenges. Join our growing community of thoughtful individuals exploring psychology, consciousness, and personal growth by subscribing to ThinkDeep and enabling notifications. Remember, where you are right now isn't your final chapter. It's the starting point for becoming who you're truly meant to be.